our top 10 expansions from 2020. Thank you for joining us at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. 'Tis the season for top 10 lists. We had the girls versus the guys list, and there were some shenanigans going on there.
And most definitely like a surprise giveaway that they announced.
We did say if the guys' video reached 2,000 thumbs up that we'd do some giveaways, which they did. So we said if the girls' video reached 2,000 thumbs up, we'd give even more games away.
So definitely go watch the girls' video if you haven't yet.
I'll put the link right up there.
And give us some thumbs up, some comments as well, and hopefully we can also reach that threshold for the contest.
I'm sure you will. But without further ado, let's get started on today's top 10 expansions from 2020. So number 10 on our list is Tiny Towns expansions that were released in 2020.
And there are two of them.
There were two. The first one was Fortune, and that brought coins. I brought a few of them here so we could show them off. But the Tiny Towns is just a fun puzzly game that I think maybe is even a little bit more difficult if there's more players in it because there's more different resources being thrown out there.
Right, ones that you don't necessarily want to make the patterns for your village. And that's where this expansion, I think, comes in and helps with that aspect of Tiny Towns.
Yeah, because coins, you can gain those throughout the game based on constructing buildings and things like that, and then you can sell them or you can use them. I have this upside down. You could use them to actually like replace a good that is that's called out.
Right. So if Kevin says glass and I really don't want glass because it's going to mess everything up, I can spend a coin that I've already put into my chest and instead use brick or wood or something that's actually going to help me instead.
There's a limit of number of coins you can have, you can only have up to 4 at a given time, but at the end of the game, those coins turn into points, so you sort of have to use your coins wisely. The second expansion that came out for Tiny Towns is Villagers, and we were just playing this weekend, and really had some interesting buildings that were given with the different ways you're using your villagers.
Right, so these are cute little animal meeples that you're going to be putting into your village board, and then there are several different cards that will give them powers, and there's lots of variability in this game and in the other expansion with new cards, buildings, but if these little villagers are working in a building, you can spend them to take the action on the card, and those can be very helpful things.
If you've played Villagers and if you've played Fortune, let us know in the comments which one's your favorite.
Number 9 is the update to Smartphone Inc. or the expansion to Smartphone Inc., which is called Update 1.1. I think the Kickstarter may have had some of this stuff included in it, but you can purchase it as a separate expansion. I actually have a video coming out.
You do?
With a lot more detail about
Before the end of the year, your video will come out. Just making sure we get all those videos done in time.
Yes. But this one adds a new map for 2 and 3 player games, so it's a lot smaller.
I really love that new map.
Yeah, I think it makes the lower player counts much more interesting and tight. There's more tension there.
It was a lot, really hard to get Smartphone, but Arcane Wonders brought it over to the United States, so it's, I think, a little easier to actually purchase Smartphone. And now you have this new expansion. The directives are something new, and then the CEOs. I think the directives really add some interesting gameplay on what you're trying to do and the timing of those things.
Right. These are in-game goals that you're basically racing for, and the first person to achieve the objective gets the directive, and that's going to be about 12 points at the end of the game.
Number 8 are the expansions to It's a Wonderful World, and we have this from Lucky Duck Games.
Right, so the first expansion is Corruption and Ascension, and this brings the game up to 7 players. Originally it's 5, and this is a card drafting, tableau building, resource management game. It adds 4 new types of cards to the game, and the 2 that most people are talking about are the corruption cards, which can boost your production, but then it's also going to give you negative production to something else. So it's like a benefit and a penalty with it. And then there are the pair scoring cards. So basically, you get 6 points for every gray card and green card you have, those sort of things. So more points being able to be achieved with those extra cards.
The other expansion is called War or Peace. That sort of brings a campaign element to the game with 6 scenarios, although since there's branching paths, you only see 5. So it sort of unlocks cards. It's not really like destroying things. So there is probably able to reset the game, which I find interesting. So now we have Corruption and Ascension and War or Peace for It's a Wonderful World from Lucky Duck Games.
Number 7 is Sagrada Life.
This is a continuance of the Great Facade series from Floodgate Games.
So there are 3 modules in this expansion that you can use all together or separately. You can mix it with other expansions. So brings a lot of variability to the game. I think, Kevin, one of your favorites is the orange Masterworks dice.
I mean, I love colors in a game, and they have bright colored dice. I'm glad they brought a new color in, and those orange dice aren't just pips on those dice.
I know they have different arrows and symbols, and it's going to give you points for matching things where those arrows are pointing, so it brings even more puzzliness to the game. There are also apprentice cards, which are kind of like the tools. They give you special abilities, but they are personal to you. And some of the new window frames are going to have a little apprentice icon. And when you cover that icon, you get to use your card. The 3rd module are the public objectives. And those are goals that everyone is going toward to try to get more points for the game.
Number 6 is the expansion to Root, the Underworld expansion. Root was Tantrum House's number 1 game a few years ago. Love the expansions that come from this game. This brings 2 new factions and 2 new maps. This has the Duchy, the Underground Duchy, as one of the expansions, and they're trying to sway their ministers to sort of rule over the people. This one has...
They're moles, right?
These are moles, so they actually have some tunnels that you can, pop up in different places around the map, which I really like.
The other expansion is the Corvid Conspiracy, and these are like crows, I guess.
Yeah. Different than the other birds.
Right, different than the other birds. And they have these plot tokens that you place face down on the board, and they have different effects, different traps on them when they are revealed.
Like those.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes.
Right. I played this one, and I remember other people were like, oh, do I want to spring that? Because there's one that I think removes all the enemy pieces. And so just the threat that one could be on that space kind of adds some more intrigue to the game.
The maps, there's a mountain map and then there's a lake map. I like the lake map because it has this little ferry that you can, a raft that you can move your characters from one space all the way across the other space to sort of move your people around a little bit differently or faster, if you want to say it like that.
Number 5 is Parks Nightfall. So Parks made quite the splash when it came out because it has beautiful art and the components are so well done. The wooden pieces for the different resources, the trays to store stuff in. So it just looks great on the table and it's not too complex. So it's something that you can introduce people to. It's maybe a slight step up from a Gateway or Gateway a little bit plus.
Gateway plus.
But Parks, great game, and then it has now an expansion that adds more to it.
Sure, the Nightfall has year cards and bonus scoring opportunities, and you're going to experience the trail in a brand new way with new camping mechanic as well. So this all has all new artwork in the Nightfall expansion too. And Tantrum House has some really cool tent tokens that you can check out. I'll put this link in the description of this video.
So they're just different alternate colors of the tent tokens that come in the game.
Number 4 is the Charms and Potions expansion to Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, the deck building game.
That's a bit of a mouthful.
Right. We've enjoyed the other expansion that came out last year. This one adds new things, charms and potions, and a new character.
And that would be Ginny, and it also adds components for a 5th player. So now you can play it up to 5.
Which makes the game a little bit longer, but not too much longer.
Right.
So the charms are pretty cool because they add more different player powers to the characters.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Patronuses. I think if you have Patronuses, you either choose whether you want to use a charm card or a Patronus card.
And then throughout the game, you're trying to collect potions to basically give you more benefits.
Right, and once you unlock the potions, there's a board that if you meet certain requirements on your turn, then you can get the ingredients for the potions. So it adds a little bit more of like, oh, I'm trying to do this so I can get those ingredients.
If you're a fan of deck building games and not tried the Harry Potter deck building game, check this one out. It's fun because it's co-op, so you're all sort of working together to fight the big bad guy, who we know is...
He who must not be named.
Thank you. Number 3 is Clank Adventuring Party, expansion to Clank.
So this adds 2 more players to the game, so now you can play it with up to 6 instead of 4. We actually have not tried it with that many people. It seems like it would go long, but they have added some reaction cards to the game where if another player does something while this card is in your hand, you can play the card, draw a card, and then still use that card on your turn for the actual action.
Keeps the players involved. It might not make the game go faster, but it does keep them more involved to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, the other big thing that this game brings is player powers for the different characters. So there's 6 different characters you could play as. They each have their own powers and different things, mechanics that are triggering their powers, and you can even play as Whiskers the cat. Number 2 is Wingspan Oceania. And this game brings 95 new birds. Everyone loves the birds.
You need more birds. You need more birds.
You definitely need more birds. And there are some really cool birds in this expansion, like kiwi and ostrich or emu.
Which actually brings one of the mechanics, the flightless birds.
Right. So some of the birds are flightless, so they don't have a wingspan listed. So it's more of an asterisk, like a wild wingspan, which plays into some of the new bonus cards in the game where you get points for having ascending or descending wingspans. I tried that one and, well, I did not succeed very well.
I like the nectar that comes in the game, which is basically almost like a wild resource, so it gives you a little bit more flexibility in the game, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and then there's scoring for how much nectar you've used during the game as well. Another really big thing is the new player boards. Oh, got one right there. So the benefits are shuffled a little bit. The eggs are a little harder to get in this one.
Definitely harder.
So fewer egg production, but then there are ways to reset the bird feeder and reset the bird tray. So if you're looking for certain food or looking for certain birds, there's easier ways to get through those with this expansion.
Number 1 for us is the Shadowed Paths expansion to Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. One of our favorite games from last year was this game, this campaign type game where you're cooperatively working together, adventure, story type, all of this cool stuff. Shadowed Paths brings a big box expansion.
Right, so there are more characters that you can play. Characters like Gandalf, Arwen, there's a few more dwarves, I think there's another human. I played Arwen, and I really enjoyed the powers that she had, the weapons. There are some new weapons, some new cards for titles and items and things like that that you add into the game when you play with the expansion.
So this is, like I was saying earlier, an adventure story. So in the Shadowed Paths expansion, I felt like there was more branching storylines going on because you are choosing for the Shadowed Paths, do I want to go through the valleys of Mirkwood, the forest, or do I want to go into the mines of Moria?
And you will eventually go through all of them, but you can choose in what order. And I'm not sure if there were paths that we didn't take at all.
We're definitely trying again because the base game we tried twice, and it did feel like there was some other things we got to see. We played the Hunt for the Ember Crown, which I actually like that a lot more than the base game personally. And I enjoyed Shadowed Paths, even though I felt actually it was a little bit easier till the very last scenario.
Right. Yeah, I would say Shadowed Paths had some really great scenarios, and then there were a few that were a little easy or just felt like they were over too fast. Now, we did play it on normal difficulty, and we're pretty experienced players, so we were basically leveled up pretty early. So we had really powerful items and weapons early on.
There's new enemies in Shadowed Paths as well, with spiders and a Balrog too. Woo!
Yeah, I enjoyed it, even though there are spiders, and they were pretty creepy looking, especially once they're painted.
Yes, and there also is some downloadable content, which is the Haunting of Dale, which we have not tried out yet, but that is for us to play in 2021, so I'm looking forward to that. So that wraps up our top 10. Let us know in the comments which expansions were your favorite from 2020, and maybe there were some that weren't even on this list.
Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. It really helps out our channel.